What if a river could remember every song it ever carried, every sorrow it swallowed, every secret it cradled in silence? This is not just a tale of water and stone. It's the story of a girl who listened and a white heron who never left. You're about to hear the last song of a forgotten river, and once you do, you'll never forget it again. A haunting story of memory, loss, and the enduring bond between human and spirit mist, curled around the edges of the valley like a forgotten hymn. It crept over moss-covered stones, wept from ancient trees, and clung to the dry bed where once, long ago, a river had sung. Lyra stood at the edge of the gorge, staring into the hollow bones of the forgotten. A haunting story of memory, loss, and the enduring bond between human and spirit. Mist curled around the edges of the valley like a forgotten hymn. It crept over moss-covered stones, wept from ancient trees, and clung to the dry bed where once, long ago, a river had sung. Lyra stood at the edge of the gorge, staring into the hollow bones of the forgotten river. The name wasn't poetic. No, it was literal. No one remembered when it had last flowed.
Hey there.
Locals spoke of it only in fragments, like a lullaby half-remembered from childhood. But Lyra had come chasing something real, not folklore, not metaphor, a sound. She replayed the old field recording on her battered recorder, its speaker hissing with age. Then came the melody, thin, ghostly, and heartbreakingly beautiful. The notes trembled like wind through reeds. No instrument known to man had created it. No voice could replicate it. It was something else entirely, alive, grieving, waiting. The melody wasn't just a sound, it was a calling. She closed her eyes and listened, and for a moment she swore she heard the faintest whisper riding the air. Not the recording. Something here, now. A tone so low it seemed to vibrate inside her bones. She opened her eyes and saw it. Perched on a half-rotted branch jutting from a stone wall was a white heron, tall, silent, watching. Its eyes were the color of storm clouds over water. It made no sound, offered no movement, yet something in Lyra stilled. The heron didn't belong to the living world, not fully. There was an otherness to it, as if the land itself had shaped it from the last breath of the river. And then it was gone, lifting silently into the mist. The village of Calder's Hollow lay nestled in the crook of the valley, its rooftops sagging under years of quiet decay. Few people remained. Fewer still spoke of the river. But Eldon did. Lyra met him at the edge of the town square, where he fed breadcrumbs to sparrows from a cracked wooden bench. "You're here for the song," he said, before she'd spoken a word. His voice was gravel and ash, his eyes pale as the river stones. "I heard it once," she replied. "On a recording." He nodded. "I've heard it in my dreams." He told her of Marrow Hollow, a village upstream long drowned and buried beneath soil and bureaucracy. When the dam came, it stole the river's soul. People vanished, stories faded. The melody that once floated over water each dusk was the only thing some still clung to. My grandmother used to say the river sang to those who listened, and we listened, but the world got loud. We stopped hearing it, and it stopped singing. Lyra asked him if anyone else had tried to find the source. Eldon shook his head. They stopped trying after the water died, but not all of us forgot. He pulled from his coat a folded slip of parchment, old, nearly crumbling. On it were 5 notations, hand-drawn in ink that had faded to rust. Musical notes, but bent, curved, alien. Beneath them, a single word in a language Lyra didn't recognize. Kairuan, he whispered. The old name for the river. It means the one who remembers. She began recording at dawn, placing sensors in the gorge, dragging wires along the old riverbed. Days passed, nights fell. Nothing came but silence.
Hey there.
But the heron returned,
Subscribe to my
always
channel.
watching, always
Also press
present.
this bell icon.
It would perch on twisted branches or stand ankle-deep in the ghost of a stream. It never came close, but it never left for long. One morning, Lyra followed it. It glided ahead of her like a phantom, weaving through the old gorge trail, past stones inscribed with moss-covered runes, until it paused before a narrow slit in the rock wall. There, hidden behind roots and overgrowth, yawned a cave. She stepped inside. The air chilled instantly. Darkness wrapped around her. Her recorder crackled, then hummed. Faint, delicate vibrations coursed through the stone. Lyra pressed her hand against the wall. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Then the melody rose. Software haunting, a single strand of music echoing deep beneath the surface. She began to cry, not from fear, but from the overwhelming feeling of something ancient, aching, and indescribably lonely. She returned again and again, mapped the cave, recorded the tones, found layers upon layers of frequency hidden in the rock, harmonies and echoes, not random, but orchestrated. The walls were singing, or remembering. She took samples back to her temporary studio in the village and built a map, note by note, tone by tone. The melody was incomplete, fractured, and that's when she saw the white heron again, this time perched outside her window. It stared at her, then turned slowly and flew toward the gorge. Lyra followed. It led her not to the cave, but to a twisted oak near the river's edge. Half of its roots were exposed, cradling a patch of soil. There, sticking from the earth, was the corner of something carved. She knelt, brushed away the dirt, and uncovered it. A stone bowl, inscribed with holes along its edges. A hydrophonic vessel. Ancient. She took it to Eldon. His hands trembled as he touched it. "My grandmother described this," he said, voice hollow with wonder. "It sang when the river passed through it, not metaphorically, literally. This is what made the music." He looked up at Lyra, tears in his eyes. The river was the instrument. Lyra planned a revival, not a performance, a remembrance. She invited musicians, those willing to listen, not perform. With reconstructed instruments based on the artifacts found near the cave and recordings of the tones pulled from stone, they practiced for days in the gorge. And the heron watched. Every evening, it returned, standing still as a monument at the edge of the stone ledge. Lyra composed the final missing piece by listening, not writing. She sang to the cave, to the wind, to the stone, and they answered. On the day of the performance, the sky was heavy with cloud. Mist hugged the gorge. Locals gathered. Eldon lit a single lantern at the river's edge. The musicians began, low, slow, reverent. The melody drifted through the stone like a returning breath. Instruments wept. Winds carried the sound, and the white heron circled above. The moment the final note rang out, a soft harmonic echoing through every crevice of the gorge, a rumble followed. Not thunder, water, a trickle, then a thread, then a ribbon of silver sliding over the rocks. The forgotten river was singing again. Lyra fell to her knees. Eldon laughed, full and broken. The crowd gasped, but no one spoke. And the white heron, Solin, flew one final time over the valley. It passed over the river, its wings glowing in the rising sunlight, then vanished into the mist. Gone, but never forgotten. Lyra still visits the gorge. The river flows gently now, not wide, not mighty, but musical. Some say it hums only at dusk. Some say Solin appears to children who stop and listen with their eyes closed. But Lyra knows one truth: the song was never lost, only waiting. That night, after the performance, Lyra wandered back to the cave alone. The others had gone. The instruments were packed away, the musicians gone silent. But something stirred in her. A pull, gentle but insistent, drawing her back to where it all began. The cave greeted her like an old friend. Cold air brushed her cheeks, and somewhere deep inside, the song still echoed, fainter now, but still alive. She lit a small lantern and stepped deeper than she had ever gone before. Past the familiar wall where vibrations once whispered. Past the moss-covered rocks where Solin had led her. until she reached a narrow passage barely wide enough for her shoulders. The recorder at her hip started humming, slow and steady. She pressed forward. The stone walls grew warmer, the air dense. And then the passage opened, into a chamber, round, domed, with a ceiling so high it vanished into shadow. In its center stood a stone altar. Not the kind built by hands, but formed naturally by water and time. Around it, carvings, spirals, waves, symbols she could not name. And on the far wall, a mural, faded but unmistakable. A woman, cloaked in reeds and water, standing beside a tall white heron, its wings stretched protectively around her. In her hands, the same hydrophonic vessel Lyra had found buried in the roots. Above them, etched in curving script, "The river chooses those who remember." Lyra dropped to her knees. Suddenly it all made sense. The dreams, the melody, the way the heron always appeared just when she was about to give up. This wasn't chance. It was memory, passed down, hidden, waiting for someone to listen. Tears welled in her eyes. "I remember," she whispered. The recorder fell silent. The next morning, Lyra climbed to the overlook above the gorge. Mist drifted low, birds called out lazily, and down below, the river moved, still shallow, but alive. She wasn't alone. Solin stood nearby, poised on a branch no thicker than her wrist. Its feathers were luminous in the early sun. This time, it didn't flee when she approached. She sat on the ground beside it, just the two of them, quiet, still. "You're part of it, aren't you?" she asked. "You've always been part of it." Solin tilted its head, unblinking. "I heard the song even before I found the recording," she whispered. "When I was a child. My mother, she used to hum it, said it came to her in a dream." Solin blinked slowly. "She died near water," Lyra continued. "Slipped while hiking, they said. I was 7. I don't remember her face clearly, but I remember the lullaby. She hummed it, broken and raw, and Solin closed its eyes. A soft breeze stirred. It was then she understood. Solin wasn't just a symbol of the river. It wasn't just a spirit. It was the keeper of memory, a bridge, a guardian, perhaps even a soul returned, of the woman or the village or the river itself. Lyra wasn't chosen because she was special. She was chosen because she remembered. Days turned into weeks. The river slowly widened. Fish returned. Frogs sang at dusk. The gorge bloomed with flowers unseen in decades. Lyra continued her work, recording, mapping, translating the song's layers. But every evening, she set down her tools and sat by the riverbank. Solin always came. Sometimes it stood beside her. Sometimes it perched above. Once, it rested by her feet, and she dared to touch its feathers. They were warm, alive. One evening, a child from Calder's Hollow came running to her. "You're the river lady, right?" he asked, out of breath. "I saw something weird, by the old dam." She followed. What they found wasn't weird, it was sacred. The dam wall, long abandoned and broken, had cracked open from within. Not through force, through erosion. Water had been pushing for decades, not enough to flood, but enough to seep. Through that break flowed a narrow channel, clear, shimmering, winding its way back toward the gorge. But something was buried there, caught in the rocks, a skeleton. Lyra froze. The bones were small, child-sized, curled in on themselves, wrapped around a bundle of cloth. Inside it, a wooden flute, perfectly preserved. The child who died here had tried to save the song. She knelt beside the remains, trembling. Solin landed nearby, and for the first time, it spoke, not in words, but in a note, a single, clear, high tone. From its throat came music, the same melody. But this time, it wasn't just an echo of the river. It was a mourning song, for the one who tried, for the ones who remembered, for the ones who had been forgotten. Lyra covered the child's bones with flowers and stones, whispered a promise to never forget. and then turned back, flute in hand. That night, she played, not on a stage, not for an audience, just her by the river and the memory of what once was. As the flute notes rose into the air, the river shimmered, and Solin came, not to perch, but to land beside her. She played until her hands trembled, until the stars blinked awake, until she could feel the earth humming beneath her again. Solin tucked its wings and rested beside her. Lyra knew it would be the last time. In the morning, the heron was gone. No feathers, no tracks, no sound, just a single drop of water on the flute she had laid by the river's edge. Years later, the forgotten river is no longer forgotten. People visit in silence. Some claim to hear music in the breeze. Children say a bird watches from the mist. Lyra never confirms. She simply listens, because she knows the truth. The river has a memory. It remembers love. It remembers grief. And if you sit very still, and if your heart is open,
Hey there.
you'll hear it too.
Subscribe to my channel.
The last song,
And also press
still
this bell
singing,
icon.
for those who never forgot. If this story stirred something in your heart, if you felt the river, the silence, the music, then let it echo further. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to remember. Comment below, have you ever felt something forgotten calling you back? And don't forget to subscribe for more haunting tales where animals aren't just companions. They're keepers of the soul.